an original.
From Story Studio Network.
Welcome to The Fatigue Fixer, the podcast where we get real about why you're so tired and what you can do about it. Every 2 weeks, we'll gather here for honest, heart-to-heart conversations about reclaiming your energy, your patience, and feeling truly at home in your body. I'm Dr. Sarah Vedmonkar, a naturopathic doctor, Menopause Society certified practitioner, Enneagram 3 entrepreneur with enough business ideas to last me 10 lifetimes, and a hockey and baseball mom. Over the past 15 years, I've helped thousands of women just like you cut through the confusion and finally feel like themselves again. And now, I want to hear from you too. Use the link in the show notes below to leave me a voicemail, to share your story, give feedback on an episode, ask a question, or tell me what's been exhausting you. And your voice might even make it onto the show. Together, we'll get to the root of what's really draining your energy and give you the tools, clarity, and encouragement you need to fix your fatigue. I hope you enjoy today's episode. I once picked a fight with my partner Sadler because he had the audacity to buy me the wrong birthday cake. Now, before you go and write me off as some just crazy, entitled bitch, let me give you some backstory. Let me give you some context to why I had such a reaction to getting the wrong birthday cake. Growing up, birthdays were a big deal in my house. We always had a big party. My mom makes everything from scratch to this day. And she would always make these like very elaborate birthday cakes. Basically anything we asked for, she could create a cake. And one year I remember my cake was like a swimming pool complete with like blue jello for the water. So these were like very elaborate cakes, which as a child you can imagine I loved. But what was happening beneath the surface of those birthday cakes is that my little Sarah brain was creating an association around the idea that putting effort into something like a birthday cake is how you show your love. It is how you make someone feel special. It's how you show them that you care. Okay? So now let's fast forward to my 39th birthday. I had a very simple request. I thought it was a simple request, which is that I wanted the key lime tart from Time and Again. Now, if you live in Ottawa and you have ever experienced this tart, you understand it is a delicious, delicious key lime tart with like a coconut crust. If you have not had it, you should go to Time and Again and get the key lime tart. So I pretty much only asked for one thing for my birthday, which was the key lime tart, which I thought was a very reasonable request for my birthday. The Coles Note version of that birthday story is that my partner waited too long, and by the time he got to the bakery, there were no more key lime tarts. There was only chocolate raspberry, so he grabbed that. And so that night, we're sitting in the backyard. Like, if you were looking in on it, it looks so lovely. We're like sitting, we're eating the tart, having a chat. But on the inside, I'm fuming. I'm actually deeply upset about this birthday cake. And the reason that I'm upset is that I feel like I made a very simple request for the tart, the key lime tart, and he was not able to do that. And so in my mind, him not getting me the cake that I wanted is a sign that he doesn't care. He just didn't try that hard. He didn't put any effort. And therefore, he doesn't care very much about me. That's the story that I'm weaving about this cake. And so I don't know if you can relate, but when you are not happy on the inside, that feeling of like that lump in your throat that you just want to say something, that like pit in your stomach. So I'm sitting there and I'm doing that mental dance that we've probably all done of like, I'm really pissed. I want to say something. I want to tell him that I'm upset about this cake. And then the other part of me that's like, Sarah, it's just a cake. It's not a big deal. Don't ruin your birthday. Like, move along. Get over it. And so I do that dance kind of mentally for a few minutes. And then finally, I just decide I'm going to say something. And so I say something like, I was really like disappointed about that you weren't able to get the cake I wanted. And so it was out. So now I was like, oh God, what's going to happen? What's he going to do? What's he going to say? And he literally got up and walked into the house and left me sitting alone on my birthday. And what is fascinating about that specific moment is that it is one of the clearest memories I have of how you can actually feel better after saying the thing that you need to say, even if you get a shitty response. So I felt more uncomfortable. I felt more upset sitting there with my partner, which again, on the outside probably looked real pretty and cute and good. I was more uncomfortable physically, mentally, and emotionally holding in my upsetness around the cake than I was 10 minutes later, having let that out and said, I'm pissed about the cake, and sitting there by myself on my birthday. That was a turning moment for me of realizing how important and how powerful it is to speak your truth. How important and powerful it is to tell people how you feel and what you're thinking, and that telling someone that you're upset or disappointed when that's how you feel, even if they receive it really poorly, can still be a really great thing to do. And chances are, if you're like me, you have a lot of these key lime tart moments where you were disappointed, you were upset, you were frustrated, you were angry, and you held it all in, right? You didn't say anything. You preferred to keep the peace. You preferred to not ruin the evening. You preferred to stay safe by just eating the wrong cake and putting a smile on your face and hoping that it would all go away. But that thing that we do when we hold in our emotions, when we don't say the thing that we're feeling, it has a name: emotional suppression, which is the act of holding in any outward signs of inner emotions. So emotional suppression is when you feel all the feelings inside, whether that is rage, anxiety, irritability, frustration, sadness, grief, but you don't let anyone see that that is happening. And the reason I'm talking about this is part of what we've been kind of coming back to as a theme this season is around this idea of energy wealth. And the basic idea of energy wealth is that if you want to have good energy, you need to spend less than you save in each of these 4 energy accounts. So we have our body, our brain, our heart, and our spirit. And emotional suppression is very energetically expensive when it comes to your heart and your emotional energy. And the analogy I love to use is that of holding a beach ball underwater. If you've ever been in a pool or at a lake or at a beach and you've tried to push a ball underwater, you know that you have to work real damn hard and put all your strength into keeping that ball underwater because it's trying to push against the tension of the water. And when we suppress our emotions, when we try to keep that anger, that frustration, that sadness inside, we are doing the emotional equivalent of trying to hold that ball underwater. We are using lots of energy and strength and resources to keep that thing that wants to come out. Just like the beach ball, if you ever push a beach ball underwater and you let it go, it comes shooting out to the surface, right? It really wants to come back up. Our emotions are the same. They want to be expressed. They want to be acknowledged. They want to come out. And so the energy that it takes to keep them under the surface is enormous. And it's not just the discomfort that I was describing, right? Where you have that lump in your throat, maybe you have a feeling in your stomach or in your body. When you suppress your emotions, you pay the price because you're going to have more physical fatigue. So the way that we suppress our emotions can show up physically in our body. And unexpressed anger, in particular, whether it's about a birthday cake or something else, it can raise your blood pressure. It can increase your rates of breast cancer, lung cancer, and rheumatoid arthritis. And one of the stats that I can't stop thinking about is around Black women. And Black women have had to and continue to have to fight against this persistent stereotype that they are angry, right? That classic angry Black woman stereotype. But they are actually in this impossible bind because they are often trying to not be angry because that's what we all think they are and expect them to be. But when women, Black women in particular, the more that they suppress or squelch their anger, the more they hold it in and they don't let it out, we see that they have a higher risk of uterine fibroids, which affect Black women more than white women. So we know, and if you haven't listened to my episode about uterine fibroids with Nam Kiwanuka, please go back a couple episodes and listen to that one. But one of the stats that we didn't talk about, which relates to emotional suppression, is again, Black women have an 80% risk of having uterine fibroids after the age of 50. And we see an increased risk of fibroids in the women who have the highest levels of anger squelching, or another way of saying that is that they're not expressing their anger. Now, does that mean that fibroids are all caused by emotions? Absolutely not. But it is very interesting that the way that we express our emotions or don't, we are seeing outcomes beyond just how we feel. We're seeing outcomes in our cancer, our fibroids, our blood pressure. So there are very real physical costs to keeping things in. Higher levels of emotional suppression. So people who, again, are very good at keeping everything inside and not having any external signs of how they're feeling are more likely to be dealing with depression, lower mood, and a lower life satisfaction. So when you heard me say that I was sitting with my partner on my birthday and I chose that moment to tell him that I was pissed about the birthday cake, part of you might be horrified by that. Part you may be like, I would never do that. And that's okay. But what's super interesting is that emotional suppression actually creates more emotional distance and less acceptance from others. It creates less relationship satisfaction even months later. So even though in that moment I said something, my partner got upset, he left, I was sitting alone on my birthday, right? Not the outcome I wanted. By me saying that, what I actually did is I helped my partner understand that this was something that was really important to me. And a couple days later, once we had both calmed down, I explained to him why. I explained how important birthdays were for me growing up and why I had had such a strong reaction to getting the quote unquote wrong birthday cake. And so I actually helped create more closeness and actually more satisfaction in our relationship by not just pretending that everything was okay. I actually did myself and my relationship a favor by blowing up my own birthday party. Because again, the more we can emote and express our emotions in daily life, it actually helps to predict better self-esteem and more relationship satisfaction. And what I find fascinating about emotional suppression is that we are often trading very short-term discomfort, right? The discomfort of like saying it and then waiting to see how the person's going to respond. We will trade those few seconds or few minutes of discomfort for years of emotional exhaustion. We would rather avoid that temporary discomfort of saying what we want to say, but we are willing to put up with potentially months, years, and decades of feeling tired, of being less well, of actually feeling more disconnected in our relationships. Are you tired of being told everything is normal, even though you're exhausted and don't feel like yourself? You deserve better care than that. In my one-on-one practice, I help women just like you do a deep dive to figure out what's really draining your energy. Together, we'll get answers and create a clear, personalized plan to help you start feeling like yourself again. If you live in Ontario or the Outaouais region and you're ready for the next step, visit drsarahv.ca to learn more and book your appointment today. Because being tired all the time isn't normal, and you don't have to keep pushing through it. There's a psychologist called Dr. Joan Rosenberg, and she talks about these 8 difficult emotions that we tend to avoid or try to avoid. And those are sadness, shame, helplessness, anger, embarrassment, disappointment, frustration, and vulnerability. When most of us experience any of those 8 emotions, most of us will do anything we can to move ourselves out of feeling that, right? We don't have a lot of tolerance and we don't have a lot of experience of what it looks like to sit in discomfort, what it looks like to actually feel disappointed and frustration, and to not try to distract ourselves, to numb it with alcohol, social media, drugs. So our tendency when we feel an emotion that is uncomfortable, we will do everything we can to distract ourselves, to make it go away, to numb it so that we don't have to feel it. But what I need you to hear is that if we are willing to let ourselves actually feel our feelings, and if we were to allow the physical cycle of those emotions to move through us, how long do you think they last? The answer is about 90 seconds. If you actually let yourself feel the anger and you don't try to make it go away and you don't over catastrophize and you don't try to pretend it's not there, it will literally peak and start to dissipate within 90 seconds. We literally cannot stand being angry or sad or disappointed for a minute and a half. And instead, what we do when we try to suppress and ignore those things is we are actually prolonging the pain and the discomfort of that hard or negative emotion, either by actively just rethinking and ruminating and obsessing over the cake. I could have spent weeks being pissed about the cake, right? That's what a lot of us do, is we say nothing in the moment. We pretend it's fine. It's not a big deal. And then we spend the next several days in our heads going over the whole scenario and ruminating and thinking about it and making up stories about the whole thing. Most of us will choose to prolong our suffering instead of just literally saying the thing that is on our mind that we could release and move through probably in under 2 minutes if we actually got comfortable sitting in the discomfort of some of those so-called negative emotions. Just like if you try to keep, like I said earlier, if you try to keep that beach ball underwater, as soon as you let it go, it'll fly up to the surface. And I think that is what we often convince ourselves, that I'll just get over it. It's not a big deal. I don't need to say anything. But most of us have learned the hard way that eventually it does come out. If you are resentful about something, if you're holding on to something that was bothersome and you never said anything about it, you better believe that the next time you're in a fight or the next time something happens, you're going to go straight for that example, right? This is where we see couples fighting and they someone takes an event that happened 10 years ago and brings it back as evidence. And the other partner's how do you still think, I had no idea that was an issue? Because they don't know because you didn't say it 10 years ago. This idea that we think that the things we don't say and the feelings we don't feel are magically evaporating and they just go away and we move along, they don't. There is a cost. There is a cost to emotional suppression. There is a cost to not saying what's on your mind. And those costs are very physical and they're very emotional. And what usually happens is when we finally allow that thing to come out, whether because something else happened or we just literally can't hold it in anymore, it doesn't come out gently. It doesn't come out as, I'm really disappointed you didn't get me the cake. It comes out as, of course you forgot to do this. I can't believe you didn't get this for me. You don't like me. You don't care about me. It comes out in such a more intense way. And it usually causes way more damage when it comes out later because now it's built up speed, it's built up anger, it's been You've been trying to hold it in, and when it comes out, it doesn't come out gently and softly. It comes out often in like a fit of fury. And the people around you are like, what the fuck just happened? And then you feel terrible. Most women, when they finally let things out because they can't hold it in anymore, feel so much guilt. They feel so terrible that they've let this thing out, but it needed to come out. Yes, it probably caused damage, but it was also causing damage when you were trying to hold it in. This is why I really want to speak to this idea of emotional suppression, because I think one of the most powerful things that you can do for your health and your energy is to learn how to express what needs to be expressed, to say what needs to be said, to let people know what you are thinking and feeling. Because too many of us are keeping things in and holding it in and suppressing as a way of trying to keep the peace, as a way of trying to be kind and thoughtful and nice to the people around us. And in doing so, sure, we are protecting the peace temporarily. Like, yes, your relationship might be better if you don't say every upsetting thing that comes across your mind. But long term, you're the one paying the price. Your body is paying the price. Your emotions are paying the price. Your energy is paying the price trying to hold that in. And I would argue that your relationships are paying the price because those things eventually do come out. And again, when they come out later, they usually cause more damage. Suppressing your emotions and holding things in is very, very energetically costly. If you are trying to build more energy, especially if you are someone who has a lot of PMS, who has a lot of rage or irritability, right? I always find it fascinating to notice when I get squeezed or I get stressed or I am like crunched, if I get knocked, what comes out? And for me, it is almost always like irritability and anger. And I know that's true for a lot of you because you come into my office and tell me I'm a raging bitch and I'm irritable. If whatever comes out of you when you get knocked, when you are stressed and you're crunched and things come out, number one, notice what comes out. If it's anger, you are probably holding a giant beach ball of anger, trying to hold a giant beach ball of anger underwater, right? That's what the emotional equivalent of what you're doing is that. If when you get knocked or you get stressed, it's anxiety, you're probably holding that under. If you get knocked and you get very sad and weepy and overwhelmed, that might be a great place to look at where have I not expressed these feelings? And then when I can't, when life makes it impossible to keep holding down that beach ball, what comes out? And I think that's such a great place to start to look at your emotional health and your mental health and to look at what are some of the emotions that I have a really hard time expressing? And are there opportunities where I can start to let some of that out, where I can actually say, I'm not okay with that. That hurt me. I was really upset by, right? And again, I know how uncomfortable that is. I actually had the words "speak your truth." Can't see it on camera. I actually had those words tattooed on my left wrist because that is how powerful this practice has become in my life and to my health. And I need that daily reminder to remind me that I do need to continue to speak my truth. I need to continue to tell people how I feel. And when I'm in those moments where I'm doing that mental dance of like, should I or shouldn't I say something? I always have this visual reminder to encourage me to say the thing that needs to be said. When you hold in how you feel, when you suppress your emotions, there is the energetic expense of actually prolonging that uncomfortable feeling, right? What would actually last less than 2 minutes if you just let yourself feel it is going to last way longer. The other cost is that when that bill actually arrives, right? When that thing finally comes to the surface, it's going to have gathered a whole bunch of interest on it, right? Now it's not just I'm sad about the birthday cake. It's like you're an asshole who never gets anything right. So now you have to damage control this bigger thing that could have been probably dealt with so much more smoothly if you had actually said it when it came out. My invitation for you today is to start to notice when you start seeing that you're doing that mental dance of, I'm really upset. Should I say something? I want to say something. I want them to know, but I don't want to upset it. Notice when you're in that dance. And when you're in that dance, I want to invite you to try to just say something. You don't have to say it meanly, but I want to invite you to get into the habit of, number one, not trying to make that emotion go away. If you're pissed, let yourself be pissed. I cannot tell you how many women come into my office and tell me they're angry for no reason. And I'm like, do you need a reason? I can give you 4 million reasons why you can and should be angry. You have all the right to be angry. If you feel angry, let yourself feel angry. If you feel sad, let yourself feel sad. If you feel disappointed, let yourself feel disappointed. It'll last a shorter amount of time if you actually just let yourself feel the feels. And then if there is something that needs to be said, can you practice saying it out loud? Can you practice expressing whatever emotional experience you're going through? Because again, even though there's going to be a cost, you are paying a cost every time you don't say it. Every time you hold it in, you're paying the cost. And it is a very high cost. And a lot of us are carrying a massive amount of unexpressed and suppressed emotions. And it is absolutely taking its toll. And if you need a little encouragement of like why you should do this, I can happily report, I am now 44, so I've had 5 birthdays since that key lime tart incident. I've had 5 birthdays since then, and I can happily report that my partner now pre-orders the key lime tart and makes sure that it is in stock so that I have had the cake that I wanted for the last 5 years. And I know maybe that seems like a ridiculous example, but it's not. The way that you are going to get the things you want, whether that is a tart, whether that is a partner that does something different, whether it's a job that you want, whether it's something you want to stop happening, one of the most powerful tools, if not the most powerful tool that you have, is your voice and using that voice to express how you feel. If your goal, like mine, is to build energy wealth where you have an abundance of energy, abundant physical energy, abundant mental energy, abundant emotional energy, and abundant spiritual energy, where you have energy to make it through the day, to do extras, and you actually have some left over when you go to sleep, if that is your goal, if that is what you want, expressing your emotions is a key component of not exhausting and not depleting your emotional energy, because we are depleting ourselves trying to pretend that everything is okay when it is not. So that is my invitation to you. Ask for the cake that you want. Ask for whatever it is that you want. Tell people if you're unhappy. It will be okay. Again, you are not doing your relationships a favor in the long run by holding it in. You're actually creating more distance. So I'll save you from having to get it tattooed on your arm, but speak your truth. It's one of the most powerful things you can do. It can change your life. I literally feel like it is the one practice that I have really prioritized that has radically changed my health, my energy, my life, and my relationship. Thank you for listening. Go express whatever needs to be expressed, and I will see you right back here in 2 weeks. I know your time is precious, so it means so much to me that you're here. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a woman in your life who could use a little extra energy and encouragement today. It's a small way to show her you care, because we're all in this together. Wondering what the next step is? Find out what's really draining your energy by taking my fatigue fingerprint quiz at fatiguefixer.ca/quiz. You'll discover which of the 5 most common types of fatigue you're dealing with, like frazzled fatigue, where your body's exhausted but your mind won't turn off, or drained fatigue, where no amount of sleep ever feels like enough. Your results will include recommended labs to ask your doctor about, plus my top suggestions for habits and practices that can help you start feeling more rested, calm, and in control. Because here's the thing, being tired all the time isn't normal, and you deserve to feel like yourself again. And hey, if you've got a story to share, a question, or just something on your mind, leave me a voicemail. Your voice might even make it into a future episode. Thanks again for listening, and remember, it's not all in your head. I believe you, and we'll figure this out together. I'll see you right back here in 2 weeks.
This is SSN.
Story Studio Network.